Well, hey, good morning. Welcome to DCC Today. Happy Friday to you. Glad you could join us. And we're going to start off with a photo of the day that was sent in by Julie Johnson of a beautiful sunset. So, Julie, thanks for sending that in. If you've got a photo you've taken that you'd like to send, please send it to me. It could be a beautiful scenic area. It could be a favorite grandchild, whatever. Always looking for those. Just send it to tim@dcchurch.org, and I'll be happy to use those as the days go by. Announcements for today. This Sunday we continue our series on the book of Job, and of course you can join us in person at 9 o'clock here at the church. No reservations are needed, or join us online, dcchurch.org, or if you've signed up for a DVD, you can pick those up as of Saturday morning. And if DVD works better for you, maybe you don't have good internet at your house, just contact the church office. Let them know you'd like to get a copy of the DVD. They'll add you to the list. We have those outside the front doors of the church, ready by Saturday morning to be picked up. So that's a good option. Don't forget that you need, tomorrow night, Saturday night, before you go to bed, you need to reset the clocks. It is time to turn the clocks back to standard time. So be sure to do that. And then Monday night, the young adults group, and those are our young adults ages 18 to 30, they are starting to host on the first Monday of each month a movie night. And their goal is to find really good quality Christian films to show. And they're opening this up to any age. So you don't have to be young to come. It's going to start at 6:30. The movie will actually start, I think, about 7 o'clock is when they'll start showing the movie. And of course, you need to have the mask. We'll do the social distancing, but it still is fun to get together with friends and watch a really good film. They're going to be showing the movie The End of the Spear. So if you'd like to come to that, plan on it for Monday night. How about a devotional thought? This comes from Psalm 37, verse 7. The psalmist says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices." You know, if you've been watching the news at all over this past month, of course, we are deep into getting ready for elections. And as you know, anytime there are elections on the line, there's what they call the October surprises. And that is where the candidates' campaigns all look for gotcha stories that will embarrass and humiliate the opponent. You know, some conspiracy, some embarrassing episode, and invariably there's a bunch of these things that come out on both sides. Both campaigns do this. And if you let yourself get caught up in this, it can get pretty discouraging to see all of the schemes that get carried out and all the plotting and conniving that goes on. And Christians can get real sucked into this stuff, can't we? And yet I like this verse. It just says, "Be still. Be still before the Lord. Wait patiently for him. Don't fret yourself over the one who prospers in evil devices." You do what is right before the Lord. You leave the rest in God's hands. Well, it is Friday, and we have been tracking with Glenn Brown's life story. Glenn, of course, went home to be with the Lord last year, but what a great life he lived. And I got to have the privilege of recording a bunch of his life story, and we've been sharing those stories on Fridays. And so let's have another installment of Glenn Brown's life story.
Donna and I met during the time that I was in seminary. Actually, it was a blind date, and we went to a football game at the where the University of Denver was playing somebody. And we were neither one very overly impressed, and I never asked her out. She was still in college, and a senior, I believe. But after I'd gotten this church started at Granby, one of my good friends, who was a recording artist and had a beautiful voice, I asked him if he would come up to the church and present a concert. So he agreed, and he came to Granby, and his accompanist was Donna. And as I listened to her play the piano, and we didn't have a pianist at the church, and I thought, well, now here's someone that might be worth getting more involved with. So I began to. She also played at the church where I'd been youth leader, and I guess maybe had come a time or two while I was still there, but I asked her out, and we began to get acquainted, and as time went on, she would accompany me up to Granby, and which was a 180-mile round trip across the mountains, and Berthoud Pass in the wintertime was a rather thrilling experience, going across at about 11,000 feet, and many times heavy snow. But through this whole thing, we came to the point where I began to realize that Donna was an ideal wife. She would make an ideal wife. And so I asked her to marry me, and she agreed, and we were married in June of 1958. I was 3 years pastor at Granby, and took her to Granby. We did not have a parsonage yet at that time. We lived in a little basement apartment, but she made it a home, and she was my incentive to get a new home. And so my first experience really building a real building was the construction of the parsonage at Granby. My dad came up and helped me, and it was a family affair, and it was a thrill when we were able to move in. We had had the parsonage built maybe for, just a few months. And we were really, really excited about having the parsonage built because we had our first child. In fact, it turned out to be our only child. That was due to be born in August, and she arrived on time. And we took her to our new home, and it was a delight. Of course, she was spoiled by all the people in the church, and I was delighted to show her off to whoever would listen and look. And she has been a blessing down all of these years, and we're grateful to God for Celia. Celia was a few months old when I got notification that my call up to the Navy was to be in April. So I made the appropriate preparations, resigned from my church where we had been for 5 years, and had another man elected pastor. And in March, we left the church, went to visit family in Denver, and then I was called up to active duty, left Celia and with her mother in Denver, where her Donna's folks lived, and I was flown out to the East Coast, to Rhode Island, where I went through chaplain school. This is a basic course for new chaplains, lasted I think 8 weeks, and then I was rejoined by Donna and Celia, and my first duty assignment was with the 6th Marine Regiment out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And I was assigned a battalion, and battalion of young Marines. And since this was my initial assignment, it was sort of an introductory assignment. I only stayed there 6 months. And then I got my first full assignment, and it was sea duty. The most exciting and historic event that occurred during this assignment aboard this ship was during the missile crisis with the Soviets. We were at Guantanamo Bay when the missile crisis erupted. Our ship was held over from going on to Panama, and we took aboard all of the dependents. There were, I don't know, maybe 2,000 women, children that we took aboard our ship to evacuate them from Cuba. And I was the assigned officer that was in charge of finding locations for all of these people aboard our ship. And it was a very tense, very important time for our Navy and for our nation, as a matter of fact. What were the Soviets going to do? Well, as it turned out, they backed down, and the missile crisis was averted. We took the families back to New York City, and now many of them, women, had been taken right off the golf course. They did not have time to change clothes. They were in their shorts. As we approached New York, this was later in October, it was quite cool, and they sent a ship out from Norfolk, I think, and loaded with donated clothes. And we took them aboard at sea and opened a Macy's basement down in one of the lower decks, and the women went down there and picked out all kinds of things for their for themselves as well as for their children. And by the time we got back to the United States, they were warmly clothed, and a great reception for us. Because it was still unclear the course of action the Soviets might eventually take, our ship was kept in port for the remainder of the year. My 2 years sea duty was up in end of December, so I had a couple of months that I mainly just spent with the family. Had to be subject to an instant recall, so I had to be by a telephone, but other than that, I had a lot of free time. And then my next assignment was shore duty, and I went to the Marines again. They kept me with the Marines a great deal. This assignment was at Parris Island, and it was a good assignment. I enjoyed it there. We bought our first home, a relatively new house out in an area called Mossy Oaks, big oak trees out one of the suburban areas, and it was 3-bedroom, hardwood floor with a screened-in porch, and it cost us $11,000, full price. For that was the going price. The bedrooms, as you might imagine, were not luxuriantly large, but it was our first home, and compared to what we had lived in part of the time in the pastorate, it was luxurious indeed. After my tour on Parris Island was completed, we got orders again to sea. Only this time, sea duty was Iceland. Iceland was counted as sea duty because of the, well, it was not a choice duty station as far as weather and living conditions and so on were concerned, but it was a very favorable sea duty in this fact that you could take your family with you. So I went over in the late summer of 64, I believe it was, and Donna came about September, and we were there for the better part of 2 years. One very positive thing with Iceland sea duty was that the admiral let us go every 6 months to the mainland of Europe. He would, in his plane. And so we took 3 trips to Europe while we were there and had great One sad thing that marred that 2 years that we were at Iceland, our commanding officer and several of the other officers from the base had gone up to one of the auxiliary bases that we had where the Marines were, called Whale Bay. It was where the natives, the Icelandics, butchered whales. And coming back, the helicopter crashed, and all aboard were killed. I was preaching. I was in chapel service when the message came to me, and I left chapel and went to the families. Chaplains, of course, were very involved in notifying families when such events occurred, and it was a sad time for the base. From Iceland, I was selected to go back to the Marines, this time to an air base not too far from where I'd been stationed before, near Paris Island. And it was there that I was notified that I was selected for postgraduate school. And this was, I really was looking forward to this. It signified a couple of things. Signified, first of all, that I'd have some new first-class education, and also signified that the Navy had selected me for a future with the Chaplain's Corps, and wanted to give me some select training. We stayed in a little town right next to Princeton called Kingston. Found a nice little bungalow there near where Celia was going to school, and it was a great year. We made many friends, and I was able to profit, I think, a great deal from the courses I took. One of the memorable events there were 4 Navy chaplains that had been selected to go to postgraduate school at Princeton that year. And for some reason, I was asked to be guest speaker at the historic Miller Chapel for one of the chapel services that they had. And I preached on the Holy Spirit. And the president of the seminary was my liturgist. And after we were in the little anteroom taking off our robes, he remarked, "Chaplain, we need more preaching like that in Princeton." So I felt good about it, even though he was probably being overly kind to this rather insecure chaplain who found himself in a situation that he felt he was in over his head. But anyway, God blessed that year, and they were preparing me to go to Vietnam. I knew they were preparing me to go to Vietnam because one of the courses, usually I could choose my courses, but one that I was requested to take was a course on the religions of Southeast Asia. So sure enough, before the year was over, I received orders for my next duty, and it was aboard a Navy ship, helicopter carrier, that was headed for Vietnam.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I trust that you have a great weekend ahead. Hopefully we'll see you on Sunday morning for church, and we'll be back here again Monday morning with DCC Today. And until then, God bless.